Let's go ahead and mount our rear fender now. Go ahead and grab this bracket out of your kit. It's a kind of a funny looking bracket, but anyway, what this is, it's the rear fender front support. Now what it does is go ahead and take these screws out, and I'll show you where it mounts. It's real simple. Okay, where it does, it mounts right there at the bottom of the swing arm here, and this is the rear tire. So basically what it does is it goes like this. This top piece, the ones with the forks, basically just mounts on top down in here, like that. And then the bottom piece mounts up from the bottom, and the two screws go up in to hold it in place. And what I want you to do is I want you to just go ahead and mount this temporarily. Just kind of go ahead and mount the bolts in, but don't tighten them up. We want that to be able to move sideways, back and forth, so when we put the fender on, we can adjust it. So anyway, go ahead and put the screws on that, and then we'll continue on. Let me see if I can get a better view of that. Get kind of a close-up of it down there. There you go. Different angles. These are the forks that stick up right here. And go ahead and do that, and we'll continue on. Let's go ahead and grab our rear fender supports and the license plate bracket, and then we'll show you how to put those on. This is how the license plate rear strut mounts on the right side of the motorcycle. Okay, first what we do is we slide the star washer on the axle first. That's behind the brackets here. Then go ahead and slide the license plate and the... first let's put the strut on. Slide the strut over the axle first, and then the license plate. And then you can go ahead and put this little 1/4 20 screw in there to hold the two together. It's kind of cool the way it works to kind of hold the two together there. And then let's go ahead and put the washer and the nylock nut on the outside of that. Now the reason for the star washer on the insides of both sides is it locks the strut, because it has adjustment up and down on it, so that it locks that strut in place once you tighten it up. So anyway, that's how you do that side. And then basically it's the same thing on the other side. First the star washer, and then the strut, and then the washer, and then the nylock nut. Now go ahead and just put those on and leave them kind of loose. We want to be able to adjust these struts back and forth, so go ahead and just put those on just to where they hold it kind of from flopping around there. And then we'll go ahead and put the fender on. Okay, let's go ahead and slide the fender down into the, to make contact with the bracket down in here. If you'll see now, what I've done is I've got the star washer on the inside of the bracket there, and then the regular washer on the outside. And then this is the nylock nut here. So go ahead and slide that down in there, and you can kind of snug that up a little bit. There again, the star washer locks it into this bracket so it can't slide out. So go ahead and just kind of snug that up in there a little bit just to hold it in place. And then we'll go ahead and do the back. Okay, let's go ahead and hook the rear struts up to the fender. It's real simple. All you do is you can loosen the strut up a little bit now, because it's the looser it is, the easier it is to put on. So go ahead and loosen that up just a little bit more. And then here's your... Now what you want to do is you want to use the... it's a truss head screw with a lock washer and the steel washer. So they go on the outside of the strut. And then what I do is I slide the nylon washer under the bottom side. The nylon washer is in between the strut and the fender. So if you do that, and then just go ahead and slide that in place, kind of just finger tight it, and there you go. So go ahead and do that to the other side. You can see there's the nylon washer is in between the fender and the strut. That'll keep the fender in nice shape there. So go ahead and fasten those on, and then we'll go ahead and adjust the fender. Okay, now we want to go ahead and adjust our fender and get it nice and centered over the tire. So the way I do that is, first what I do is I go ahead and tighten this screw up here that fastens the license plate to the strut. Go ahead and do that first. And then basically what you want to do here next, I just kind of snug these up, the two screws on top. Just go ahead and snug those up. And then the first thing I do is I center the front bracket. Go ahead and look from the back of the bike and center this bracket down inside here. Now go ahead and make sure that there's the same amount of clearance on both sides of the fender. If you look from the back of the bike, make sure the fender's nice and centered on the tire. Then I kind of snug that up. You don't need to get too carried away with those because you might crush that inner tubing in here, so don't get too carried away. Just snug that up good. And then it's just a matter of kind of working back and forth. What I first do too is I'll raise the fender up about 1 1/8 from the top of the fender to the tire. That kind of gives it good clearance there. And then kind of just work it back and forth. You can adjust these struts up and down from side to center the fender on the tire. You want it, when you get finished, you want the fender to be nice and centered on the tire and centered in between the two signal light braces there. Just make sure everything's nice and centered. One thing too, when you're tightening up the axle nuts, when you tighten those, if they have a tendency to twist the struts, it's because you don't have the star washer on the inside. Make sure that star washer is on the inside of the struts there, and then it won't twist those struts when you tighten them up. So anyway, let's go ahead and kind of just center that fender on there and get her all snugged up. Make sure everything is snug when you get finished. Go back and double check it a couple of times because you don't want those things to vibrate loose and come off. So, and then again, make sure your fender is nice and centered on the tire. About 1 1/8 clearance here is about right. One final note here too, we bend these struts as close as we can, but if for some reason one side just will not adjust straight, you can go ahead and bend it out a little bit. You know, they do bend, so just do a little bit at a time just to tweak them a little bit. So just a final note there, like I say, you want that to be nice and centered.